Hello everyone, Bearded Brush, and finally it is time for a new series of videos on my new army, or the progress of my new army, or I should say the additions to my new army. Now if you can cast your mind back to about 6 years ago, give or take, I did a video on these guys, and for quite a while this has been it for my Dale army, just this. Girion, a captain, and 10 dudes, that was it. I've wanted to make a Dale army for ages, but other projects got in the way, as you've seen through my many years of videos. And then finally, before we moved house last year, I bought a box of these guys, just normal warriors. I thought, right, start working on this, getting on with it. But as usual, things got delayed and whatnot. And then, funnily enough, obviously the new release of the new Dale miniatures come out as well, and that ignited my passion to really crack on with this army. I always loved the theme of the army, even obviously years ago, back when it was just what they were and they were considered a bit, I don't know if professional tournament players would consider them weak or a bit, off, but generally they weren't of any sort of a huge amazing quality. They were very sort of that this is all they were. Then they got the buffs with the archers and the bows, which obviously helped quite a lot, and things sort of evolved for them. But long story short, I finally motivated myself to get around to them. Now, I have a love-hate relationship with these models. These are gorgeous models. The detail is fantastic. I think for standard warrior models, these guys are some of the most detailed out of the entire range. I'm looking over at my display cabinets now, and for the most part, from what I can see at a glance, most of the Middle-earth range, which is no put down, but most models are much simpler to paint. They just have some, mainly they'll have an armour, they'll have a skin tone, some sort of cloth, boots, and that's generally it. I can't see a lot there, which is huge in-depth detail. You could go down the path of like the unarmoured Lothlorien elves, the rangers maybe. What else have we got? Obviously the character dwarfs from the Thorin's company, obviously hugely detailed, lots to them, but that's because they're character models. My thing is these are just normal warrior models, and they have got so much detail. I then also have added a slight bit more detail to them. If you look at the pictures, to get to my point as such, so if you look at the pictures, you'll see in the pictures, the official film and the official pictures to go with the film, there is a crisscross pattern to these guys' cloaks, and there's also most definitely a pattern on their, see it there, on their what is this, their garments, whatever you want to call it, surcoat, whatever it is. This here, there's a diamondy type pattern. I noticed that, and on these first models I wanted to create that, capture it, and make these guys look as accurate as I could to the film, which is just a thing of mine, it's all it is. Now, because of that, along with all the other details to them, the little tassels, the browns, obviously the different, you got the trousers, the little cloth of just poking out from the arms there, the chainmail, helmet, all the little crisscross details, and everything about these guys is mega detailed, and I found that such a time-consuming process. Plus, I was adding this onto it as well. My camera's got out of focus. There you go, and I was adding this detail to it as well, so I was making it take twice as long. Now, I learned a lot from these guys. And that's where the love-hate relationship comes from. Because they're such good models and they're so detailed for standard warrior models, it really put me off wanting to do any more. It was a catch-22. I wanted to make a brilliant army, but at the same time I thought, God, you know what, I can't do this. So, fast forward the last few months, I've been working on these guys, and obviously the new additional models as well. And it's taken a long time. So this is the first 10 I've got basically finished. They just need to be based now, and that's that. I have another 10 that I'm working on. I'll show them in another video, because I wanted to get these guys more in a step-by-step video process, like I had the previous army that I did the whole building of the army for. If you guys haven't seen that, I recommend you check it out. It's my Gundabad Azog's Legion. It's great fun to do that army. But again, because of the love-hate relationship, it takes a lot out of me to really keep these up to what I'd like to think is my good standard, with all these little details. And as I was trying to make a production line with these guys, and now with the guys that you'll see in another video, I'd be doing all the cloaks first, then all the browns, like their surcoats, whatever, then the chamber. But then I'd go back and I'd think, no, that model has got a bit of an arm sticking out. For example, which one could it be? I wonder. It's going to be on the spit. Here we go. So for example, this. So I've done like this, his leg, his trousers, and obviously got the fluffy bits there. You got his arm there. I thought, he's done. And then as I'm just checking him over, I'm like, he's got an arm bit sticking out there, look, because that's clearly sticking out from the cloak. That's not the cloak to me. That is actually the arm. It wouldn't sit quite right if that's all the cloak. So I'm having to keep going back, and I was wasting more and more time just adding little corrections and things in. Whoops. And man, it takes so long to do them. So the motivation for these guys has been at times a struggle. But going back to my original point as such, so these are the original guys, and I was happy with these guys to a point. But going back and then doing the new sets, I've realised I've got a lot of issues with these guys I wanted to sort out. I was never overly happy with the trim of the cloak. Is it going to focus? No, I started focusing fine there. So I was never overly happy with the trim of the cloak colour. Because when you look at... what is this camera doing? Because when you look at the trim of the cloak in that compared to the pictures or the GW photo like comparisons, for like an idea, it doesn't look quite right. It's a bit too like a murky brown colour. It's a bit too yellow. I don't know. It's just not quite right to me. So it always bugged me when I used to look at these models. And also my hand job of my freehand work wasn't quite at the level I wanted it to be. It's a bit too blotchy. So I made it my mission to iron out those colour issues to work on these new guys. Now I'm happy with the colour we have, not the freehand technique I've practiced over the years. So hopefully it looks better anyway. I'm now going to re-go over these guys, not in their entirety, but there are issues with these guys. Like, for example, I was getting so fed up with them, I never did actually do the lapels here. Is that the lapels? These little fine frilly tassel bits here are coming off of the belts. Can you just see that? The little black there? I never bothered to do them, so I physically had enough of painting these guys. And just fine little details. I want to get the gold detail of the arrows storage, whatever you want to call that. I don't know what you call that, to be honest, actually. All the things I've researched, I've never thought to research what you call the thing that holds the arrows in place. But I need to go over that. So the gold is all spilled. It's not quite in the lines it should be in and things. It's all a bit off. So I need to work on that. I'm going to go over these guys. Also, there's details with the helmet. For example, I did brown underneath the helmet, then the gold on top to highlight it, which I thought was cool at the time. And again, looking at the models, looking at the pictures, I was so obsessed with getting this right, I then realised that actually the helmets are silver with the gold on the highlights as such. So I'm going to go over them, give them a good, sorting out. The captain model, I'm pretty reasonably happy with, to be honest. He was a later addition, sort of. His cloak I'll just simply go over, because with the captain models I could never quite get the detail to the crisscross pattern on the cloaks, because these cloaks seem to be sculpted differently, so the highlight of the fabric was much finer, much thinner, whereas with the other warrior models you got a much bigger gap between that line of edging. These guys don't have that, so I'll just simply go over it again. The shield's a bit blotchy, needs to be sort of tidied up. You'll see that that's gold rather than silver. That's a theme I've tried to keep with the captains. Saying that, actually, do you know what? No, that's what I was going to do. Sorry, I've just suddenly thought. I actually changed my mind. The captain was going to have a change to his shield. What is going on my camera? It's kind of like a blurry look. Yeah, so I was actually going to put a gold thing in there. So yeah, this dude will need a complete repaint. So that's fine. But that's like the life lessons learned. So that's the old guys. And look at his face. Like, what the hell was I doing with this face? I mean, check that out. That is awful. His eyes, like, it's blotched as well. It's awful. Girion I am happy with. I'm just going to simply go over his the edge highlight on his cloak just to sort of tie that colour in a little bit better with the rest of his warriors. But overall I'm happy with Girion. I was happy with his face. His eyes need slight tidying up. I might try and add some more highlights to him just to give him a bit more of a pop. But overall I was really happy with him. He turned out okay. So he's good, and he's just gone out of production for the time being as well, fun enough. Which I'm quite surprised at, really, considering they've sort of re-released the Dale range to have more models and stuff. It's kind of funny how they then take Girion out of the line of things. You think they might sort of keep Girion going, because obviously, although the new models are based on more the War of the North, for anyone that hasn't got the Girion model yet, they might think, oh, I could do a War of the North Army, plus go back in time to the Hobbit era, and then have a Girion sort of do. But they've taken them out of production for whatever reason. Personally, also, just on a side note, I love this pose. A lot of people don't like it. They find it a bit flat, a bit boring. I think it's brilliant. I love the Girion pose. I think it's really cool. It's different because he's looking up. He's casting his eye up to the skies. He's having a good look. It's a different pose. It's not your normal sword in the air or some dynamic like I'm going to chop your freaking head off sort of pose. I find it refreshing to have this pose, and he's actually really easy to convert as well. You haven't got to do much with him to convert him to make it more dynamic. You could have him holding a spear. You could move this arm to have him holding a bow. You can sort of move his head slightly as well if you want to. The bit of green stuff sculpt and a bit of patience. You can do quite a lot with him. So. You can make him what you want, really, but no, personally, he's one of my favourite models. So, that being said, we have got the 2 new captains all done. They're all painted up. Really good. I'm really pleased with the colours. So, going back to because I do tend to bounce around a bit. Now, going back to I'll probably save him to last, actually. So, going to the edge cloaking colour thing, whatever you want to call it. So, this colour I'm much happier with, and I'm much happier with the detail on the side of the cloak, the crisscross sort of thing going on there. I'm much happier with the colour. I really looked into this colour, a little help from my friend Linton, sort of trying to help reference the colours, trying to blend them to see. I wanted to get a mixture of the Games Workshop recommended style of painting, like the images that come with the models they release. I wanted to get as close to that as well as the movies, because you look at the movies, they do seem to have, there's very few pictures, but what I have seen, the brown's much darker, whereas the Games Workshop model is much lighter, from what I can see. If anyone else has seen anything else, let me know. But because of that, I kind of wanted to try and make a blend. So to me, this is still much more browner shade of that sort of yellowy orange to what Games Workshop have. But it's enough that this pops from the red much nicer than what those models do over there. So to me, in my eyes, it blends nicely with the GW suggested style of colours, and it also still nods slightly to the original movies. In my opinion, obviously other people might think not, but either way, I'm happy with what I set out to do. This has worked. So these guys will now be painted. These guys, when I repaint them, will match these guys much better. You'll see the helmet has got the silver behind it with the the gold edge highlights as well. The faces are better, if I say so myself. The browns are better. I'm happy with how they've painted out, highlighted up. The lapels are painted as well. Sins have been covered. Even the belts have been given more of a highlight compared to the originals that I did years ago. One thing I'm not going to do, you know how in the original models I showed you from down there, I painted that little diamond edge sort of highlight style weave pattern into their coats here. I'm not going to bother with that with these guys because it's such a lot of effort, such a lot of detail to paint those on. And it looks great, don't get me wrong, but I think that might be too much really for what they are. And they end up looking more detailed than Girion. Girion doesn't have that on his clothing. I want Girion to always pop out more. I'm going to redo his base as well. So I've kept it simpler for the sake of painting. I've just gone for the crisscross freehand on all their cloaks where the weaves allow me to be, because obviously their cloaks are billowing in the wind quite nicely. But I'm pleased. And also I'm using a wet palette now, and I find the wet palette seems to allow me to have much smoother paint finishes. Don't know if you'll be able to tell. So say with this one, so there is, look. Can you see how smooth that looks on the cloak? I can. I don't know if you guys can. But it's got a lovely smoothness to it. Now, if I was to show you the same model, doing it my old-fashioned way, you can see it. I can. I don't know if the camera can pick up on that. Come on. That seems a bit blotchier to me. The paint is thicker and blotchy, and for that reason it doesn't seem to have the same highlight shade as what this one does. Now bearing in mind they're exactly the same colour, exactly the same colours have been used. I know this one's slightly darker, but that's what I was going for, but can you see this seems blotchier to me than this one? This one's much smoother. And the only difference is I've used a wet palette. He's also slightly dusty because he's been sat in the display cabinet for a while, but you can see the smoothness there, in my opinion. You can see the difference in paint of the Mayad as well, actually. But anyway, So yeah, so that's that for them guys. That's my plan for them. So last but not least, just to show you for now, Standard Bearer has got to be one of the best models of the new set. He is fantastic. He just oozes. The cloth sits so nice on the model. It sits so realistic. The cloak sits on the shoulders so realistic. It looks like a heavy cloak in the images of the film and of the film itself. The cloaks looks heavy. I don't really know how realistic they would be in terms of a real medieval recreation of a warrior. To be honest, I think the cloaks have just completely got in the way of swordsmanship and of battle. They look just too heavy. They'd probably be too restricting. So from an accuracy point of view, they probably wouldn't have had the cloaks. But from a fantasy hobbit awesome point of view, they just look awesome. But this model has captured the heaviness of that cloak, the layers of the hood. It just looks so good. And again, with the detailed models, like with the captains, there's not this gap on the cloak on the edges along the sides as there is on the other models. Interesting sort of note. I don't know if you can see, I hope you can, because I went so much effort for it. But with the banner, I tried to do the same thing as what I did with the Azog's banner, and funny enough, it's similar colours as well. But the banner, I've put very fine highlight lines to mimic and try and show off a weaved cloth. So I've highlighted it as usual, and I've done a really light, super fine highlight, just going all over it in lines. I hope you can see it like down there. See it here slightly, see it on the top there as well. There we go. Just lines, just to try and give it that weaved effect. I'm pleased that the white's come out. My white paint was dying in the heat a few weeks back, and it sort of clumped up a bit, but it is slightly clumpy. But again, the wet palette does seem to have helped smooth it out, which is great. But the highlighting that was awesome. I really enjoyed highlighting that. The face on this dude is awesome. It's come out really well. I'm really pleased with this guy. I suppose I'll leave it there now, because if not, I'll just be waffling on detail for far too long. But my plan is I'm going to rebase these guys to an extent, in the sense I'm going to just tidy up the bases. Girion, I'm going to completely take off of his base and put him on a new base. I'm going to do like a tiled effect, and maybe even put him on a step or two, so it won't affect the game too much, because obviously he'll sit higher. So don't sort of add any sort of confusion. Oh, I can see his head above the bush, blah, blah, blah. Hopefully the realistic thing will be like, yeah, but he's not really on there. But anyway, beside the point, I want to try and get him on like a step type thing. Just a couple of steps, a bit of a pathway. Where this grass is here, that'd be a path. And then 1, 2, 3 steps to recreate the scene in the film when he's sort of rushing down them steps and he glances up. I want to try and blend that scene in to make it a bit fun. But I'll probably use milliput for that. For the rest of these guys, I'll just simply tidy up the bases. I'll stick some flowers, I'll make up the floor. And overall, the whole army I'm working on, these 10 are going to have like a tiled effect base. The other 10 are going to have more like this, grass, flowers, the general generic Middle Earth base. And then the dynamic ones, the 2 captains, the banner bearer, the new captain on the new set, and the new trumpeter on the new set, they'll have sort of different sort of bases as well. They want to be more grassy, want to be more tiled, look like the Dale, background, the floor of Dale, basically. So yeah, that's the plan for that so far. So my next video, I'll hopefully be able to show you more of like the progress side of things, because the next 10 warriors are still being worked on. So I'll sort of explain the paint shades, a bit more colours, things like that. But yeah, I hope you enjoyed it, guys. Thanks for watching. Do appreciate it as always. I'll see you soon, hopefully, for part 2. And yeah, take care, guys. See you soon. Thank you for watching, and rock and roll.